Well, the previous speaker thought she got like the short end of the straw, but I'm the one really standing before you on lunch, so I got the lucky spot. My name is Dinesh Chandrasekhar. I think they gave a very glowing introduction, so I won't go too much into the about me part. I don't know where it's showing up. There it is. Okay, so I won't go into too much of that. But my point is, this session is something that is near and dear to my heart. I wanted to make sure that we can talk about pricing in the context of product marketing, because this is the tribe here. The entire clan of product marketers are here, and everybody deals with product pricing in some way or other. The challenges are always there. I want to make sure that we can talk about it in that context, the kind of challenges that we face, how do we address that, and how can we make it better within our enterprises. Now, is there a one-size-fits-all kind of a solution that I'm going to give? Absolutely not, because there is no such thing. So there is no silver bullet. If you're looking for that, this session is not for you. But what I'm going to tell you is that the challenges are very similar across a lot of the enterprises. And we got a very eclectic collection here. I don't think it's all software companies. How many software companies, or how many people work for software companies here? Majority, okay. But I know that when I spoke outside, there were a few folks in the insurance space, in other sectors as well. So I just want to make sure that you take this with a pinch of salt. You have to kind of use it to your needs and your enterprise, how they kind of want, and how you can fit that into your enterprise as well. So with that said, let's talk about the topic. Yes, I cheated. The price is right. It's not a right thing. It's actually the price is never right. Because that's the same thing that you'll hear pretty much across your enterprise from your sales teams. You will always hear that saying, oh, the pricing is complex. Oh, the pricing is super hard to explain to my customers. Oh, the pricing is never competitive. My competitors are having a much better pricing than me. So that's always the case. Then how do you make it really right? How do you make it suitable for your enterprise that you and your sales teams are actually successful? That's a real question. If you've ever done a win-loss analysis as a product marketer, one of the top reasons that you'll hear as why a particular customer left you, why you had a loss with that particular account, is because the sales rep would say, we lost it to a competitor because of pricing, because we didn't have competitive pricing. It's always the case. But you talk to the customer might give you a different perspective. There might be other nuances as to why they actually went away with a different competitor. But time and again, this whole pricing conversation keeps coming and slamming you in the face, and you want to say, how do I fix this? So let's talk about some of the key challenges. First off, we all deal with this in our price list. By the way, before I even proceed, I just want to ask, how many of you currently own pricing? Okay, it's not many, but how many of you wish you own pricing? Okay. Because technically, product marketing should own pricing. Okay, so that's the way I've always seen it to be successful. Now, there are organizations where product management owns pricing. While I wouldn't call it a bad idea, it should be a collaborative exercise. Owning pricing doesn't mean that you're the only one dictating pricing for the entire enterprise and everybody follows your law. It's a very collaborative process, which is something that I'm going to explain. But I want to make sure that you understand that product marketing has a big role, a big say in pricing, right? And one of the first things you will notice is you start managing the price book. And as you manage the price book, you'll come across this challenge, which is legacy SKUs. Something that was created 5 years, 6 years ago because your product was in a different shape or form. It was designed for on-premises. Now you're on the cloud. And there is no easy way to map it, but the customer is kind of paying that same old price, and you wish they were paying you more. But there is no easy way to migrate them, because the customer is like, if you change the pricing, I'm going to your competitor, right? So that's always the case. So that's a big challenge. The second thing is the price list has not been refreshed in a while, right? The entire price list. It's become stale in such a way that most of the reps kind of understand what the pricing is, and they've been around, and they understand completely what the old pricing was, and they don't even get tuned with the latest trends. The earlier speaker spoke about different types of pricing strategies, right? So pay as you go and all those kinds of models have emerged quite so well in the recent years because of advances in the cloud, SaaS-based offerings, and so forth. So you really want to make it super compelling for your customers. But if you do not have your price list updated, refreshed, one, you're going to look stale. Two, you're not offering competitive pricing. Your competitors are refreshing it. But the challenge is also that you cannot refresh it too often as well. So that's also a challenge. Because the moment you start refreshing it too often, guess what? The customers are going to feel like, you guys are nickel and diming me, or you are not keeping it consistent, or what you promised me like 3 months ago has changed. All that kind of discrepancy starts coming up. So you really want to keep it at a pace where you're changing it for the right reasons, but refreshing it at the right intervals. The last thing I want to say here on this aspect is inconsistent pricing can also creep up across multiple channels. The moment you have partners, so then there will be a partner price list. You deal with the government, you'll have like SLED pricing and all that, or education pricing and so forth. So there will be like multiple different types of price lists where then discrepancies happen. Whatever your list price here for one SKU may look different on some other price list. You update here, you may not update there. Those kinds of challenges emerge. And then poor sales enablement is also a reason, right? You may do all the good things in the right intent, updating the price list and so forth, but if you don't enable the sales teams, telling them how to talk about the pricing, how to say, here's what has changed, here's how you have to talk to your customers about the value, how to the new pricing works and so forth. If you're not doing that enablement, you fail again in terms of the new pricing model. Same thing with customer comms as well. You have to keep the customer updated about why you're making certain changes with the pricing model without freaking them out, right? Sticker shock is a major reason why you would lose customers. And more than often, the pricing model was one person's brainchild. I mean, I've seen this happen. Somebody who is the SME in the company would say, I know what I'm doing. I know this is the way to design my pricing. This is how it should be done. The moment that person owns that and does that, it's not collaborative anymore. It's not taking in market inputs. It's not taking in sales inputs. Then you suddenly are working with tunnel vision. You're going with only one way how you have to do it, and it's not going to play well in the market, right? So these are all kind of the key challenges that you'll face. One of the key things that I've not listed here is the complexity by itself, the nature of the beast, right? Pricing, the way we evolve software across all different verticals has become complex. There is no easy way to just say $3 a pop kind of a thing. It's never the case anymore, right? I've dealt with IoT pricing, Internet of Things pricing, in an earlier job, and I've looked at competitive pricing. I've looked at some of the major cloud vendors that have offered IoT pricing. I've just gone in there just to tweak around and see how much would it cost me if I were to deploy 1,000 devices on this cloud platform, blah, 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 right? There are so many dials and bells and whistles that just make you go what am I doing? What dials do I need to do to look at the final pricing? If me, somebody that is entrenched in the industry, somebody that is considered to be an SME, cannot figure this out, how is a customer supposed to figure this out? How is a customer supposed to budget and plan saying, I need to allocate $2 million for this particular software because I know that's what it's going to cost me for deploying 1,000 devices or so forth. But it's not easy, right? We have made it super complex, and that's what we need to solve. The other thing I want to highlight is we are all selling commodities. I mean, unless and until you are one of the 3 large cloud vendors who have absolute control over a lot of different things, and you can dictate the price and say this is what it is, and your customers pretty much suck up and pay, right? But if you're not, if you're like me, if you're one of the other thousands and thousands of vendors out there competing with similar vendors in the same space, we're all selling commodities. Differentiation becomes a major challenge. If you are a product marketer, you talk about differentiation all day long. You talk about value proposition. But value proposition cannot be just about competitive differentiation. I'm better than that product in terms of features and so forth. It's also about the value. It's also about the customer perception of your product that kind of dictates the price. The iPhone is a great example that everybody talks about when it comes to pricing, right? When it came out, people were haha, Who would pay like, $9.99 for an iPhone or something like that, or whatever it was priced at back then? It was like ridiculously priced. But the ecosystem, the value that was pitched in, great way to sell that, right? People are still paying. How many Apple fanboys here, fangirls here? I'm sure there are quite a few. I have an iPhone as well. But the thing is that, right? So we all kind of see the value and we go like, yes, I want to pay that. But to be able to see that is super unique. The iPod by itself is also a great example. When it was introduced, I don't know if you know the story, it just looked like yet another MP3 player, right? So there was no value differentiation there. And it came with a ridiculous price of I think $2.99 or something at the time. And people didn't want to pay that. But then their product marketing team did something super smart. They seeped in the value proposition through celebrity endorsements that said, you don't have to buy an entire CD of songs. You can just buy one song, whatever song you like. You heard it on radio, you can just buy that one song. That's a value proposition. That's different than any of the other CD players out there, because in those CD players, you have to buy the entire CD. With the iPod, you can just buy the one song that you really like, 99 cents. That immediately drove the sales. I think in the first 18 months or something, they sold more than 3 million iPods. Right? That's what I'm talking about here. We are all selling commodities, but the way how we differentiate ourselves compared to the competition is what will help you enable pricing in a very, very positive way. Wherever this clicker is supposed to work. I don't know. Huh? Okay. I don't know if it went ahead. No? I shouldn't have put so much on animation, I guess. Where am I supposed to click? Which direction?
I think you don't have to point in different directions, just the green button.
Okay, it's starting to work. Thank you. All right, crowded competitive market, we spoke about that. What that also translates to is heavy discounting, right? So we all understand that the moment you have a commodity, the customer is going to go your product looks like the same thing. Same set of features in that product too. Then they're offering it to me for $2 million less or $100,000 less. Then what does your sales rep do? Immediately drop down the pricing. Immediately offer crazy discounts. We'll drop by 200K. Sure, there's this third vendor that is offering for 300K less. Sure, we'll drop it by 300K less. So what this leads to is heavy discounting, which loses value, meaning the product's value gets lost, right? So that's a major challenge that we have. Value pricing is hard. Value-based pricing is hard. But in order to do that, you need to be able to set those standards. The earlier speaker, again, spoke about discounting frameworks. That is super important, right? Having a proper discounting structure is absolutely critical, and enforcing that is even more important. We all have discounting structures, but then there are overrides. There'll be a VP that'll go sure, I'll take care of it, go ahead. And then soon enough, you have a customer that is paying 80% of your list price lower, right? What's the value of the product then? When it comes time for renewals, there is no room for negotiation. You cannot bring that customer back from an 80% low price to a 50% or a 30%. You cannot do that. That is pretty much a lost case. Renewals, right? Customers want the same price, but better discounts, always. This is the mentality. They always want that. If you've ever dealt with the procurement team at any of the customer sites, you'll know. They are really, really keen on getting better pricing from you. They may have paid 80% lower, but they will still want 10% lower the next time when they come for renewals. It is at that point where you can talk about value differentiation, where you can say, well, we've just introduced all these new features, here's why the pricing has changed, and so forth, and then change the dynamics of the conversation. Super important. So what should we do? Let's talk about a few tactics and strategies before we run out of time. First off, if you have ever done a pricing analysis, you will know it's not an easy process, but I encourage you to do it. Can you do it alone? No, you cannot. Can you do it internally? Yes, you can. But would you rather hire somebody from an external agency to come in and do it? You should. Because there are pricing experts out there that can actually weigh in on the pros and cons, can do the competitive analysis, can talk to your customers, do lots and lots of interviews, stakeholder interviews, external interviews, and so forth, and come up with a proper quantitative analysis and say, here's what will work better for you. Now, it's not, again, a silver bullet. You still have to tweak it for your own needs. You may have to adjust and accommodate that to your needs. It's all there. But it's a good 10 to 14-week kind of an exercise. It takes money as well. It can cost anywhere from $500,000 to $2.5 million. Again, depends on the size and the complexity of your set of SKUs you have, the kind of customers that they have to talk to, and the complexity that you have within your situation itself. But I highly recommend it, encourage it to do the one. But if you have the skills, now this is where I get into a little org conversation. As I originally started saying, product marketing owns pricing, should own pricing, which also means that there should be a pricing manager on your staff. If you have an org structure, make sure that you have a senior pricing manager, a pricing director. Again, as complex as your org is, you can define that org by itself. But that's a very important thing to consider as you start building out your pricing structure and having those conversations with other stakeholders within the organization. Because you as a product marketer by yourself cannot do that. You need that support that has the person that has the quant skills to have those conversations very effectively, right? So do that. Implement a pricing committee if you don't have. Earlier when I said it cannot be a one-person job, it has to be a village of people. It has to involve the stakeholders. A pricing committee kind of enforces a few things. Now, who forms a pricing committee? Let's talk about that. Different stakeholders from across the organization: product marketing, product management, sales, revenue operations, finance, customer success, customer operations. I can go on. Pretty much key stakeholders from all of these groups need to be as a part of the pricing committee. The reason is, whenever there's a new pricing SKU that comes up, these are the people that will feel the impact of that. Somebody in sales might go, well, if you introduce this, what does this do to my customers? How do I communicate this to my customers? What does it do when it comes to renewals? The renewals team head will ask that question. Revenue might say, tell me the impact of this in the long run, 6 months to 3 years. What is the implication, financial implication of this by introducing this? What's the cost of enablement, blah, blah, blah. There are a zillion questions when it comes to introducing a brand new SKU or even changing an existing SKU. And you need a committee that kind of looks at the bigger picture and not like the tunnel vision view of saying, I can change it. I've been in situations where somebody changed the pricing because they felt like, oh yeah, I'm not getting enough revenue. Let me just bump it up by $10 a pop. They did that. And the immediate repercussions were customer success teams were inundated with calls from customers saying, why did you change the pricing? Why am I paying more? I've been paying this until last month so much. What is the reason? Did you guys make any product changes? What happened? No product changes, nothing. But the person who held the pricing decided to up-level the pricing because they wanted more revenue. And they thought, by doing this, they can get more revenue. That's why it should not happen. And a pricing committee kind of prevents those kinds of catastrophes from happening. Adopting agile price processes. This is also very important. You don't want a model where pricing changes take longer. Red tape is a horrible, horrible thing, particularly when it comes to pricing. You can run into those situations very easily where you are going to have decision-making take a excruciatingly long train wreck in slow motion. It's like, oh, this is taking too long. My customer's waiting for those changes. Can I please make a decision and move on? That's the kind of begging why I've been there. I've been on my knees and begging those kinds of things, and that has happened. But to avoid those, you need processes that are agile. This pricing committee can kind of help you with that. They can kind of make those processes much more quicker. How quickly can we approve it? How quickly can we move this forward, implement this, take it to market, and so forth? And then talk about pricing strategies right at the beginning of every NPI process. If you have a new product that you're introducing, don't talk about pricing after the product has been conceived, built, and taken to the customers and all that, and then you're just about to go GA, and somebody goes like, hey, how about we price this thing $10? Who came up with this? What is the unit of measure? Why are we pricing it this way? What is the customer pain point? What are we solving? What is the value that they see? Who has asked these questions? Who has made the revenue projections? Why are we doing this at the last minute? So you want to avoid that. You want to make sure that you have the pricing conversations as soon as somebody said, I got this idea about like launching this product in this particular space. Good, let's talk about what this means to the revenue impact, right? Pricing needs to be discussed right then and there. Coming to the crux of it, the group here, everybody is a PMM, so we all want to be part of this. It's a very strategic function, in my opinion. I've been in conversations with so many people where I've listed out a whole bunch of things what a product marketer does. Even like one of my very earlier bosses, asked me, Dinesh, remind me again, what do you do as a product marketer? And then I started listing out bullets, and I came up with like 20, 22 bullets. I still have that slide because I use it with my team as well, saying these are all the things that is expected of a product marketer because we all do this. And I think everybody in the room empathizes with that. We all recognize that. It's a very challenging job with absolute multifaceted role. Pricing is one of those key strategic functions that's one of the bullets in there. You should really take pride in that because it doesn't get more strategic than this. The defining how you take this to market and how you can make it successful, how the customer sees the value in it, the realization of that is right here, right? So let's talk about what a PMM's role is in pricing. First off, listen to the voice of the customer, right? We sometimes lose the forest for the trees. We kind of go with the flow. We talk to a sales rep. Sales rep says, hey, my customer doesn't like the new pricing model. We don't even go one click down and go can you make a conversation with the customer? Can I talk to them? Can I understand why, right? We need to hear it directly from the voice of the customer itself. We don't want to hear hearsay. We don't want to take it through salespeople who are absolutely influential in making sure. I hope there are no salespeople, no offense. I've been an SE myself. I've been in sales. I know how it is. But we just want to make sure that product marketing can directly talk to customer and get that feedback. Talk to your internal stakeholders. There are so many people within your organization that are part of the buyer's journey. There were several sessions in the morning that spoke about the buyer's journey. Internally, there are so many people that enable that buyer's journey that have a say in how pricing should be structured as well. They see that impact. Somebody in renewals, for example, will see that impact if you make a change in pricing, of one of the existing SKUs, for example. Review data, a lot of data. There's so much data available. We don't tend to kind of do some digging and double clicking into. Salesforce has it, or whatever CRM of your choice. You all have the data. How does a customer buy this? When did we start the conversation? What was the original price point that we went in with? What did we end up closing the opportunity with? Why was the discrepancy? Why did we start with $1 million? Why did we close the opportunity at $300,000? Ask that question. Find out why. Talk to that account team. Talk to the customer. That's digging right there. That kind of gives you insights of what the buyer's journey is, what the buyer sees in terms of value of the pricing is. Compare competitive pricing. This is kind of something we do, right? All product marketers look at competitive landscape. We all do competitive analysis. We all do this. But competitive pricing is also something that gives you tremendous insights. Like what I mentioned earlier, when I looked at the IoT pricing for some of the cloud vendors, that gave me super awesome points. Next time I had a conversation with one of the customers that said, well, I'm thinking about going with Azure. I would open up your laptop, price that thing, and tell me how much it costs. I'll wait, and I'll fold my hands, sit there for 10 minutes. They would not be able to find the pricing for IoT using that thing, right? That's kind of how complex it is. And I'll say, I'm giving you a tiered pricing, which is absolutely easy to understand. $1,000, 1,000 devices, here's X amount of dollars that we charge, period. No bells and whistles, nothing. You don't need to worry about anything else. No throughput, no volume, no other dials to figure out how much it's going to cost you. Budgeting becomes an easy conversation. That was my win, back then, when I was doing that. So that was that conversation, where you can look at competitive pricing and use it to your advantage. Implement a pricing model collaboratively, right? When you implement the pricing model, as I said, take inputs from pretty much all of the folks that you feel are super important. Again, it's not just about your field. You'll see that everybody's touching the buyer's journey in a lot of different ways, and you want to make sure that everybody has a say in it. You've collected all the inputs, and you're making the decision based on that. And last but not least, educate and evangelize. PMMs do this all day long, sales enablement, internal, and all that. We all do this. Something that we take pride in. We just want to make sure that we can convey all the stuff. But super important to convey the value pricing, right? The value sense needs to be talked about to your sales teams about how to talk about this pricing. You don't just say, Mr. Customer, you asked for so-and-so, here's X amount of dollars. You have to explain the value first before you get to the numbers. Do not throw numbers out there at your customer. Talk about the value first. Make them feel it, and then talk about the model. Own the pricing framework, right? So this is something that we all would want to own. I've loved owning it, so many different companies that I've worked with, so much complexity, 400 different types of SKUs, a lot of them horrendously legacy, going into the cloud space, those kinds of challenges makes it really exciting. This makes a PMM job super exciting. I hope you feel that excitement as well. So own it, enjoy it. For those folks that do not know about Logic Monitor, we are a IT infrastructure monitoring observability company. So if you want more information, you can look it up. But outside of that, I'm available on LinkedIn. If you want to have a chat about pricing or shoot some air about like PMM stuff, I'm available. Feel free to connect me up. I know you all have to go grab lunch. Me too, I'm hungry. But is there any questions that we can answer in like 4 minutes and 18 seconds that we have?
Let's give it up for Dinesh. Thanks, Dinesh.
Thank you.
That was awesome. Okay, so we have some time for a couple of questions for sure. So let's see what we have up on Slido. All right, top question here. What approach or methodology do you use when asking price questions in surveys?
So, as I said, value is the most important thing, right? So figure out a few things. What makes the conversation easy for them to have with the purchasing group? Every company, every customer has a purchasing group that they have to talk to and convince. A lot of times you'll hear that the purchasing group wants clarity with certain things, that they understand a certain language. For example, devices, number of devices. In my case, I'm doing infrastructure monitoring. The most common unit of measure that they understand is number of devices. So is that something that would make it easy for them to have a conversation, right? So figure that out. Pay as you go always kind of freaks out the budgeting folks, right? So how do you convey that easily to them? What is the language that they would like to use? Figure out those kinds of things when you frame pricing questions so that you can have a much more easier language with your buyer personas. The other thing I'd also say is the value part, right? So figure out what means to them in terms of the challenges. Like if it is downtime, if you're solving downtime for a customer, if you're in a space like mine, and if you're trying to figure out, I want to resolve issues much faster, quicker, and so forth, is that the value that they're going after? How can I convey the value easily to them, right? So those are all the types of things that you would want to figure out first. The rest are all like easy, right? The kind of pricing that they would want to do, whether it's like pay as you go or like one-time ELAs and things like that, you can figure all that out as you go. But this is one of the more fundamental things that you need to solve beforehand.
Nice. Customers always want the lowest price. How do you get an honest opinion from a customer on what they're willing to pay?
Yeah. You need to find the right kind of customers for that. I would say when you have a cab, for example, a customer advisory board, you pick and choose customers that give you the honest feedback, that give you the kind of input because they believe in your company. They believe in what you bring to the table to them, what you enable them with, empower them with, right? So the customer advisory board is a great place for you to start to pick those kinds of customers that can give you input on pricing, because they would tell you with candidness on saying, this is working, this is not working. I've literally been in those conversations with customers where I've asked them point blank saying, is this too high if I price it like this or if it's too low? And they would tell me, I can have a conversation with my purchasing group if it is between this range, right? So that kind of gives me that kind of insight on where to put those numbers.
You good? Got time for one more?
Yeah.
All right, last question. Changing pricing can be risky. How can you test and validate new packages before rolling them out?
So you can implement a beta program, something that's called like a lighthouse program or something like that, where you can handpick a few customers who are ready to adopt this new offering, for example. And you would enable them with it. They would play around with it for like a month. They would give you feedback. And the ones that go like, oh, I really love this. I wish I had this. I want this like tomorrow. Those kinds of customers, talk to them about the new pricing model and talk to them and saying, well, I'm sure you can have this like in a month because we're going to go GA, and we want you to have this. This is the pricing structure, right? And then they would tell you if that's doable for them or not. They would tell you that this is not going to fly with my buying group within my company, right? So that's the feedback that you want. And then you kind of like tweak the dials and everything. But this happens before GA. You cannot, again, go GA and then start tweaking it, which is the wrong thing to do.